You've been afraid. I know it. We all have. In the quiet moments when no one's watching, that fear doesn't just knock, it barges in. It disguises itself as self-doubt, as hesitation, as the very subtle, very poisonous question, what if I fail? But here's the truth. Fear is not your enemy. It is not the thing to run from, suppress, or deny. No, it is the most powerful fuel you possess if you know how to reframe it. Let me say this to you. The greatest fortunes, the most explosive growth, the most significant breakthroughs, they have all come from men and women who knew how to take their fear and flip it. They knew that the only thing more dangerous than fear is letting it stop you. You see, the problem is not fear. The problem is your relationship with fear. When fear shows up, most people freeze. They shrink, they slow down, they sabotage, they confuse fear with failure. But the man who wins in life, he does something radically different. He learns to reframe fear into fuel. He sees fear, and instead of asking, what if I lose? He asks, what am I about to gain? He asks, what is this fear here to teach me? He asks, what muscles of courage and conviction are being trained right now? Because he knows fear is the final gate before progress. Think about it. Every major leap you've taken, every transformation you've earned was preceded by fear. It came first, like a test, like a gatekeeper asking, are you sure you want this? So let me reframe your perspective today. What if fear is not a warning sign, but a welcome sign? What if fear is not the end, but the beginning? You want to build wealth? You want to master your calling? You want to leave a legacy? Then you must learn to walk with fear, not to eliminate it, but to elevate because of it. This is what I call positive reframing. It is the mental art of taking what most people see as negative, failure, rejection, risk, and using it to increase your power instead of drain it. Let me give you a truth few understand. You do not rise when fear disappears. You rise when you stop giving fear your authority. Because fear is not in control, you are. And when you reframe it, you take the driver's seat back. Here's how we start. Step 1, acknowledge your fear without judgment. Most people pretend they're not afraid. They act tough. They mask it with false confidence. But deep down, they're operating from a foundation of avoidance. But the man who thrives, he tells himself the truth. He says, yes, I feel afraid, but that doesn't mean I'm not capable. Yes, I'm uncertain, but uncertainty doesn't equal unqualified. Yes, this is uncomfortable, and that means I'm expanding. Because reframing doesn't mean pretending. It means redefining the meaning of the fear. Fear is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're stepping into something important. And important things always feel risky at first. So instead of asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? Ask, what does this feeling mean about the size of the opportunity in front of me? Step 2, convert fear into focus. Fear, when left unchecked, becomes a fog. It blurs your mind. You start spinning in what ifs instead of building what's next. But when you reframe, you don't escape fear, you extract energy from it. You take that fear and you channel it into preparation. You train harder. You plan deeper. You execute sharper. Not to compensate for fear, but to partner with it. Because fear sharpens you when you don't run from it. It's like a whetstone. The more you press into it, the more focused, more intentional, and more resilient you become. This is what separates winners from wishers. Winners use fear as a reminder to get ready, not a reason to stay still. So the next time fear hits you, don't try to kill it. Convert it. Ask yourself, what does this fear invite me to focus on right now? Is it your mindset, your communication, your preparation? Use it. That brings us to step 3. Let fear reveal your desire. You only fear what matters. You only get nervous before a big move. You only hesitate before something meaningful. So when fear arrives, stop treating it like the enemy. Treat it like a compass. Fear tells you what matters most. Fear reveals where your heart is most invested. So instead of pulling back, lean in and say, thank you. You've just shown me where I'm meant to go. That job interview you're afraid to schedule? That business idea you've been delaying for years? That conversation you've been avoiding because it could change your future? Those are not blocks, they are beacons. And when you step toward them with courage, not absence of fear, but dominion over it, you begin to train yourself to act in alignment with your highest self. This is how you turn fear into fuel. You stop treating it like quicksand, and you start using it like rocket fuel. But here's the deeper truth. You must also reframe the outcomes you fear, because much of what keeps people stuck is not fear of trying, it's fear of failing. They say, what if it doesn't work? To which I say, what if not trying is the biggest failure of all? You must begin to see failure as a process, not a punishment. Every wealthy man, every leader, every pioneer, they all carry scars. But they don't hide them. They wear them with pride, because those scars were earned. Those scars taught them what ease never could. You need to fall sometimes. You need to stumble. You need to miss the mark, because every miss sharpens your aim. Every fall strengthens your spine, and every fear you face builds your capacity to hold more risk, more reward, more responsibility. So here's the mindset I want you to adopt today. When fear shows up, I welcome it. When failure arrives, I learn from it. When discomfort appears, I use it. Because every one of these is a signal that I am becoming more disciplined, more valuable, more dangerous to the forces of doubt that once kept me small. Let's not be mistaken, this isn't about becoming reckless. It's about becoming relentless. It's about no longer outsourcing your peace to external validation. It's about saying, I may not know the exact path yet, but I trust myself enough to take the first step, and that first step, the one taken in faith, not fear, that is the moment you separate yourself from 97% of the world. They're still negotiating with fear. You're partnering with it. You're using it as your coach, your compass, your conditioning, and eventually you reach a point where fear no longer owns you. It fuels you. You stop being afraid of pressure because you realize pressure is what turns coal into diamonds. And you, my friend, were never meant to stay coal. You are meant to transform. And that transformation begins when you stop trying to be fearless and instead become formidable, not in the absence of fear, but in the face of it. So the next time you feel your heart race, when your mind fills with doubt, when your hands shake before a big moment, smile, because that's the sound of your next level calling you forward. That's fear doing its job. And you're doing yours. There will always be two voices in your head. The voice of limitation and the voice of liberation. One is rooted in fear, the other in vision. One tells you to slow down, play small, stay safe. The other, it says you were born to build something greater. The way you choose between them determines the quality of your results. Fear, when misunderstood, will always try to negotiate your ambition down to the level of your comfort zone. But when you reframe it, you realize that fear is not there to stop you. It's there to introduce you to your highest self. This is the great illusion of fear. It dresses itself up as a warning. But it's often a welcome sign to the future you asked for. Because make no mistake, the minute you pray for strength, opportunity, or wealth, the universe sends resistance to qualify you. Not punish, not delay, qualify. And if you see that resistance as rejection, you shrink. But if you see it as revelation, you grow. Now let's apply this directly to wealth. Because fear doesn't just show up in dreams and identity, it shows up in how you relate to money. And here's what most people never understand. The fear of financial failure isn't a money issue. It's a meaning issue. You've assigned meaning to money based on fear. Fear of lack. Fear of being judged. Fear of never having enough. But that meaning was learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. So if you want financial freedom, you must reframe what money means to you. Money is not evil. Money is not greedy. Money is not scarce. Money is a mirror. It reflects your mindset, your ability to serve, your courage to ask, your consistency to show up. If you fear money, you will repel it. If you worship money, you will compromise your soul chasing it. But if you respect money, you will attract it. And respect begins with how you speak about it. Words shape your wealth. Stop saying, I can't afford it. Start asking, how can I create it? Stop saying, I'm bad with money. Start saying, I'm learning how to grow money with wisdom. This is not just positive thinking. This is mental wealth conditioning. Because the moment you reframe how you see money, you change how you pursue it. You stop waiting for the right time. You create the time. You stop hoping to be chosen. You choose yourself. You stop fearing what you don't know. You learn until you do. This mindset, this posture of proactive responsibility is what separates the financially free from the financially frustrated. And it all starts with one shift, turning the fear of not having into the fire to create. I want to make this practical for you. Imagine right now you're facing a situation where money is tight. Your bills are heavy. You feel pressure. The voice of fear is loud. You're not going to make it. Stop. Take a breath. And ask yourself, what can this teach me? Instead of spiraling into panic, pause and pivot into power. What do you still have? You still have your mind. You still have time. You still have energy. You still have choice. You are not broke. You are becoming. And becoming is always uncomfortable. But discomfort is not your enemy. It is your training ground. The strongest muscles are built through resistance. And financial muscle is no different. So when fear whispers that you don't have enough, shout back. I am enough. And from that truth, I will build. You don't need a rich uncle. You don't need luck. You don't need a perfect past. You need clarity, conviction, and courage. And every one of those is a decision, not a condition. Clarity comes from asking better questions. Conviction comes from building habits, not hype. And courage comes from taking action, even when your voice shakes. That action could be launching your offer, raising your prices, investing in your development, making the call, sending the proposal, opening your mouth and saying, this is who I am, and this is what I bring to the table. That kind of action intimidates fear, because fear cannot thrive in forward motion. It thrives in hesitation. It thrives in doubt. It thrives in excuses. But the second you move anyway, fear begins to shrink. Not because it disappears, but because you finally stop feeding it your energy. You want to build financial power? Stop rehearsing your limitations and start practicing your possibilities. Fear wants to make you a spectator in your own life. But financial fuel is found when you become a participant, better yet, a producer. The man who produces, who creates, builds, solves, and serves, that man is never powerless. Because his wealth is not in his wallet, it's in his will. And willpower is a renewable resource. You generate more of it every time you choose courage over comfort. Let me remind you of this. Every great entrepreneur, every high-level thinker, every legacy builder you admire, they all walked through fire. They all faced moments when the numbers didn't line up, the client said no, the bank account hit zero. But they kept going, not because they were fearless, because they were faithful to the vision. They reframed fear as a sign they were close, not cursed. And so they kept showing up, kept investing, kept learning, kept believing. That's how you turn fear into fuel. Not by magic, but by momentum. Now some will hear all this and say, but what if I try and still fail? And I will say this to you. Failure is feedback. It is not final. And it is not fatal unless you stop learning. Every failed product teaches you how to improve. Every no teaches you how to clarify. Every delay teaches you how to develop patience and persistence. These are not losses. They are tuition fees in the school of greatness. And the price is always worth it. Because the reward is not just money, it's not even status. The real reward is who you become when you reframe fear and keep going. You become disciplined. You become resourceful. You become dangerous to doubt. And that is the greatest asset you will ever own. So today I challenge you to look fear in the face and smile. Smile because now you understand it. You're no longer a slave to it. You're a strategist of it. You know that fear doesn't slow you down, it points you up. And when it shows up, that's your cue to lean in, not lean out. You reframe the fear of asking for the sale as an opportunity to practice belief. You reframe the fear of being judged as a signal you're showing up bigger. You reframe the fear of going broke as your awakening to become a creator. And once you start thinking like this, the rules of life change. You're no longer waiting for conditions to be perfect. You are creating perfect moments in imperfect conditions. That's what makes you unstoppable. Because while others wait for the fear to disappear, you move while it's still present, and that's what makes you rare. You become the one people turn to. Not because you have all the answers, but because you walk with authority. And authority isn't granted. It's earned through consistent action in the face of resistance. So go earn yours. Reframe that fear. Turn it into fuel and light the fire under your financial future. You are not the victim of your emotions. You are the master of your mindset. And once you choose that truth, there's no turning back. The greatest financial empire you will ever build is not one made of brick and steel. It is the one you build inside your mind. And every cornerstone of that mental empire must be laid with a new definition of fear, because while most people allow fear to paralyze them, achievers, those who master wealth and influence, understand that fear is a flag. It waves when you are nearing your edge. It doesn't say turn around. It says it's time to level up. The real tragedy is not fear. The tragedy is that most people agree with their fear. They listen to its lies. They repeat them to themselves. I'm not ready. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I've failed before. That internal dialogue becomes their destiny, but I'm here to teach you something different. You must become the editor of your beliefs. You don't have to believe every thought that pops into your head. In fact, the most important work you will ever do in your financial life is mental editing, rewriting the beliefs that keep you broke, blocked, or playing small. So ask yourself, what if my fear isn't telling the truth? What if the thought, I'm not ready, is actually an invitation to get ready? What if I've failed before is a reminder that you didn't quit and you're stronger now? You reframe the narrative and suddenly new energy rushes in. And energy is everything. Because wealth doesn't just follow effort, it follows emotional alignment. When you feel strong, clear, and certain, your actions carry a different vibration. You speak differently. You move differently. You sell differently. You serve differently. And money? It follows energy. Every time. The world doesn't pay the man who is unsure of his worth. It pays the man who speaks value with his posture, his tone, his choices. But you can't fake that level of certainty. You build it by going to battle with your beliefs every day. So let me show you how to reframe even deeper. Fear of rejection? It's not rejection, it's redirection. You were never meant to serve everyone. So when one door closes, that's not failure, it's filtration. You are being filtered toward the audience, client, or opportunity truly aligned with your values. Fear of failure. It's not failure, it's field data. You don't grow by theory, you grow by testing. And every wrong turn reveals a piece of the right path. Do you think the most successful people in the world got it right the first time? No. They became masters not by avoiding mistakes, but by reframing them as feedback loops. They didn't say, I lost. They said, now I know better. They didn't say, it didn't work. They said, it worked enough to show me what to tweak next. And that mindset, that's unstoppable. Now, let's address something deeply important. The fear of being judged. It is the most common, most costly fear of all. Because it keeps brilliant people quiet. It keeps powerful ideas buried. It keeps leaders disguised as spectators. Let me tell you this as clearly as I can. Their opinion is not your truth. When you give your power to others' judgment, you rob the world of your potential. You must understand, judgment is unavoidable. Whether you play small or play big, people will have something to say. So why not get judged for going all in? Why not get criticized for rising instead of being accepted for staying average? The man who reframes fear doesn't hide from judgment. He uses it. He lets it sharpen his message. He lets it test his vision. He lets it provoke him into becoming so clear, so consistent, and so convicted that judgment rolls off like rain on steel. Let them talk. While they debate, you build. While they gossip, you grow. While they mock, you move. Because you understand. No one ahead of you is trying to pull you down. Only those behind you throw stones at the man climbing the mountain. So keep climbing. Now let's return to wealth creation. Fear also shows up in risk. People freeze at the idea of investing time, money, attention. They say, what if I lose? But I ask you, what if you win beyond your wildest expectations? What if your small risk opens the door to a network that multiplies your income? What if your decision to hire the mentor, launch the brand, build the product, what if that changes your family's financial tree forever? Fear says, protect what little you have. Reframing says, what I have is seed. And seeds must be planted, not protected. Wealth is not stored in savings accounts. It's stored in strategy, in service, in solutions. You must learn to reframe the fear of losing into the opportunity to learn how to leverage. And leverage is the name of the game. The more you leverage your skills, your network, your courage, the faster your financial elevation. Let me say it again. Wealth chases clarity. And clarity comes when you stop letting fear lead the conversation. Instead of asking, what might I lose? Ask, what is the cost of not trying? Because doing nothing has a price too, a high one. It costs you time. It costs you joy. It costs you alignment. You don't feel fulfilled playing it safe. You feel suffocated because your spirit knows you were built for more. And fear tries to talk you out of that greatness. Reframing calls you back to it. You must become so mentally rehearsed in reframing that it becomes your automatic language. Instead of I'm overwhelmed, you say I'm growing into a new level. Instead of I don't know what I'm doing, You say, I'm learning what I need to lead. Instead of, I'm scared to fail, you say, I'm training for something bigger than comfort. And when that becomes your baseline, you stop being a reactor. You become a reframer. And reframers become rebuilders of industries, of families, of futures, because they don't wait to feel good to move forward. They move, and feeling follows. Let's talk about that final transition. Turning fear into fuel. Fear has one energy, contraction. It wants you to shrink, avoid, hesitate. Fuel has one energy, expansion. It pushes, stretches, ignites. So here's the magic. You can't destroy fear, but you can transform its energy. Here's how. You speak boldly in spite of trembling. You create generously in spite of doubt. You show up again in spite of yesterday's results. And over time, that in spite of turns into because of. You'll say, because I was afraid, I prepared harder. Because I was nervous, I practiced more. Because I was uncertain, I got wise counsel. You use fear as a trigger, not a trap. As a signal to intensify your action, not to hesitate. And the compound effect of those reframed actions, massive results. Because while others waste energy resisting fear, you reinvest that energy into refining your craft. That's the edge. That's the advantage. That's how you go from wishing for wealth to welcoming it, because you're now the kind of person who can hold it. You're no longer just chasing money. You're embodying mastery. And money is simply a natural response to who you've become. You've reframed fear. You've mastered momentum. And now, wealth becomes inevitable. Every man reaches a moment in life where he must choose. Remain a prisoner of fear or rise as a producer of faith. That moment, my friend, is not marked by applause or celebration. It is quiet. It is lonely. It happens in the dark corners of your thoughts. And how you respond defines your destiny. You've come this far in the journey of reframing. You've learned that fear is not a stop sign, it is a signal. A signal that something important is near, that you are stepping outside the ordinary and preparing to become extraordinary. Now let's take everything we've built and turn it into a final foundation. Not a feel-good concept, but a code of conduct, a new standard for how you show up in life, in business, and in pursuit of your wealth. First, remember this. The greatest fortunes have never been born from comfort. They were forged in moments of uncertainty by people who refused to freeze. Fear never has the final word unless you give it your voice. What separates those who rise from those who retreat is not intelligence. It is decision. The decision to act, to speak, to serve, to invest, even when doubt stands at the door. When you delay action because you don't feel ready, you delay your results as well. Readiness is not a gift. It is a byproduct of doing, of trying, of moving, of falling and standing again. Those who wait for the fear to go away are passed by the brave ones who moved anyway. So if you feel fear rising today, rejoice. It means the path in front of you matters. Now reframe it. Say, because I feel fear, I will move boldly. Use it as the very proof that you are doing something few will ever attempt, building the kind of character that attracts compounding rewards. And that is what wealth truly island. Not the car, not the house, not the title, but who you've had to become to earn it. Wealth is the reflection of refined identity. It is what happens when discipline becomes your default and purpose becomes your pursuit. Let me remind you again, money follows value. And value is not a personality trait. It is a practiced principle. You deliver value when you solve problems no one else can. You deliver value when you remain composed in chaos. You deliver value when you speak truth with clarity, even when others are selling illusion. The man who brings this kind of value becomes unignorable in any industry. And to bring that value, you must master your inner world. Fear will still knock on your door, but you will answer with preparation, with strategy, with mental rehearsals so strong that fear starts to question its own presence. That's the man you are becoming. A man who sees rejection and reframes it as redirection. A man who sees obstacles and reframes them as training. A man who sees doubt and reframes it as a test of discipline. And because you do this consistently, wealth becomes attracted to your energy. Let's speak plainly now. Your income will rarely exceed your identity. That's why reframing fear is not just a mindset trick, it is a wealth creation strategy. When you think differently, you operate differently. And when you operate differently, the market responds. You stop chasing scraps and start commanding tables. You stop begging for attention and start leading with intention. You stop fearing the silence and start speaking with substance. And here's what's most remarkable. When you show up like that, consistently, your results begin to chase you. You won't have to force success. You will attract it. Because people trust those who walk with unshakable energy, who solve without complaining, who lead without ego, and who serve without fear. That is the essence of this entire message. You are not made to shrink under fear. You are made to stand up in the face of it and show the world what's possible. Let's close with a final challenge. Today, make a list of every fear that's kept you from acting. Write it down, face it. And next to each fear, write one reframe. If the fear is, I'm afraid I'll fail, reframe it as, failure is proof I'm in the arena. If the fear is, I'm afraid no one will support me, reframe it as, support begins when I support myself with action. If the fear is, I don't know enough yet, reframe it as, every expert was once a beginner who started anyway. Now take that list and read it every single morning. Let it become your internal programming. Let it override the doubt. Let it fuel the fire. Because once you take control of your internal world, the external world has no choice but to shift in response. You will wake up clearer, move faster, speak bolder, and create wealth, not from a place of desperation, but from deep certainty. This is how the greatest creators, investors, builders, and leaders have always operated. They weren't fearless. They were trained to reframe. And so I ask you now, are you willing to stop dancing with fear and start directing it? Are you willing to stop telling your story through pain and start scripting it through purpose? Are you ready to stop waiting for permission and start acting like the authority in your own life? Because if you are, the next chapter is not written in fear, it's written in fire. It's written in motion, in investment, in commitment, and you, my friend, are the author of it. So go write something remarkable. Go reframe fear and watch wealth respond. And never forget, the man who masters his inner state becomes master of any circumstance.